Okay, we're going to spend some time playing with parts. This is usually the first thing that I ask youth to do when they've been called to play the organ or the piano as prelude, because it's just very simple but super, super effective. The idea is don't play all the parts. That's it. I love for prelude especially to start with the soprano line and then wait a phrase or maybe half of the song. Maybe the entire first verse is just the soprano line. And then we add maybe just the alto line or just the tenor. Or maybe we add the left hand but not the alto line. And then we add in the alto line later. This kind of layering and building on the layers can really help a piece feel like it's building towards something more complete and something more emotionally impactful. It's really good. It's especially effective on the organ because you can sustain those lines so well. I mentioned in a different video, if I do this, I will sometimes, don't shoot me, organists trained in organ school, because I know you don't all do this, I will sometimes use the vibrato for the solo soprano line and control that vibrato very deliberately for the most effect, as if it was being sung or for me played on my flute, because that's my principal instrument. So I'm going to look at two. I cherry picked two that I know are especially good for this, but really you can do this with any. With fast songs, it can be really good too. You know, if you have Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory and you just have the melody and then you add it in, it's very cool when suddenly you hear all the harmony coming in. Look at my hands go. My mom would be proud. Okay, so here I'm going to do Nearer My God to Thee. This is hymn number 100. We'll start with just the soprano. Don't be afraid to use rubato. Think of that solo voice singing. And let that rest happen. Silence needs to be used a lot more. It really highlights what's happening. And I did the whole first two lines with just the soprano part. And you know what? It isn't boring when you're listening for just the melody. I'm actually going to play the tenor part, and I'm going to do it an octave higher. So it's going to be right up here by my right hand soprano line. And there are a few things as I'm looking ahead that this is going to be tricky, but we'll see. We'll see if this works. So that's the tricky part, is there the tenor line actually goes above the soprano line. This is the third line. And the tenor line plays the C. So if you aren't careful, it just sounds like the same things all the time, but you can bring out the melody. Or you could just not play above there. Again, it's all experimental. I'm not playing the tenor note here. There we go. I'm going to switch to the alto part here. And now let's stay to the alto part. Now, what if I had played the alto part instead of the tenor part at the beginning? Or when I came in, sorry, at the third line. It would have sounded fine too. That alto part happens to be the tonic of the chord, the root of the chord. If you know any music theory. Whoops. Talking and playing together is not my strong suit. See, it sounds just fine with the alto part. Then if I go back, okay, I just finished with the alto part. Let's go back and on the third verse, let's not add the bass part yet. Or, yeah, let's add the bass part, but not the tenor part. You can do whichever one sounds good to you. The bass part often makes it sound much more whole because it usually is playing the root of the chord, the home note of the chord. Whoops, I added in tenor notes on accident. No more tenor notes. As long as your brain doesn't get too confused looking at things that you aren't actually playing. Let's add in the tenor part now. Wow, now it sounds glorious. Whereas if you had been playing this the whole time, it would just sound boring by this point. Sorry, it really would. The same thing 3 times in a row gets a little old. Okay, what do I want to do next? Okay, let's do this. Let's take my left hand, and I actually, on the organ, this works particularly well because you can have different manuals, and so your brain doesn't get as confused. I'm actually going to take my left hand and bring it over the top and play, often the tenor part sounds good on top of the melody. Sometimes the alto part sounds good, so I'm going to bring that alto part up an entire octave higher. I'm going to go ahead and cross my hands because it's easier for me to think of my left hand doing one thing and my right hand doing the other thing when I look at the music. If it's easier for you to think of your right hand on top, reading the alto part, do it that way. It doesn't matter. And the first few times I tried this, I was like, my brain is killing me. So... this is often a little bit easier on your brain if you're playing the tenor part, because that tenor part is already in. I'm trying to think while I'm doing this. It's not working. There we go. Because the tenor part is in bass clef, and so I always associate that, it's in a different staff, and so it works better for my brain to think that way sometimes. So I'll try that. I'll put the tenor part on top, a whole octave higher, for the last half of this third verse. And again, you could be on different manuals if you're on an organ. There's nothing wrong with doing your entire left hand, maybe tenor and bass both here. The point is, experiment, find what works for you. Oh, I forgot I was going to do another song for this, because there's one that's really cool. Oh my gosh, this one is so cool to play with the parts on. I love doing this one. This is number 108, The Lord is My Shepherd. And the reason why it's so cool is because the melody most of the time is not in the soprano line. If you follow along... the way that people are used to hearing it for the first verse. And I'll try to kind of bring out that alto part. But again, I'm not actually a classically trained pianist, so I'm not terribly wonderful at this. And there's a redistribution because I can't hit that low A. The soprano line, except when the soprano has more of a melody part, and it would sound like this. And yes, I did do that rhythm as if people were singing the words through the valley, because I want people to be thinking about the words, right? want you to notice. If you make a mistake, if at all possible, embrace the mistake. It was, I think, in the third line. So I believe it was in this third line here where I had this in the left hand and I played something wrong. I don't remember. I might have played a D in my left hand on the top instead of an A. And I just turned it into what's called a suspension and moved to the correct note. What I did not do is I did not go, oh no, I messed up. If you embrace it and turn it into a part of the arrangement, you might actually get ideas of what sounds good later. The still waters flow. Then it just sounds like a beautiful suspension resolving into the regular harmony of the piece. And then if that happens again in the next line, which it doesn't in this piece, I would make the same mistake on purpose the next time so that this has now become part of the arrangement. It's a happy accident. They happen. They're wonderful.